Great.
1 second.
Good evening and welcome to the Committee on Ordinances. Today is September 30th and the time is 5:32. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Chairman Espinal,
Present.
Vice Chairman Shelly Peterson. Present. Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris is absent. Councilman Oscar Vargas.
Present.
Councilor Justin Reyes is absent. We have 3 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome City Solicitor, Richard Schwartz, thank you for being here. And our great and fan number 1, go over there. It's the Grand Gary. Welcome, Grant. Okay, so the first item on the agenda, please.
Item number 1, an ordinance amending chapter 13, housing of the Providence Code of Ordinances to add Article 9, multi-unit dwellings.
Thank you so much. And I have 2 of them. I have an exhibit that I'd like to entertain a motion to enter into the record. Exhibit 1, which is a letter from one neighborhood builders and one from the Greater Board of Realtors of Rhode Island. I'll entertain a motion to enter exhibit 1 into the record. So move. Motion made by Councilor White, second by Councilor Peters, all in favor, aye. Both the ayes have it. Exhibit 1 is filed by record. I also have a substitution, so I'll entertain a motion to enter into the records. So made. It's made by Councilor Jason, second by Councilor Vargas, second by aye. Opposed? We just have it, so it's not following records. Okay, Councilor Peterson, please sign your item.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on it. This particular change or amending this particular chapter in the housing ordinance or in the housing section of our ordinances is directly related to quote unquote property managers. And essentially what it is, the purpose of this ordinance is to provide the city with basic contact information. This by basic, I mean name, address, phone number, email of a designated person that owns 6 or more units in our city. The reason why this, I felt that this was important was to that in order for us to be able to continue doing the good work that we do in our communities, one of the things that would be extremely helpful is to be able to have some basic contact information in situations where perhaps DIS, the process of DIS would require a little bit more, too much time. So let me give a perfect example of what this means. When we discuss things like, grass getting too big, long, or extreme dumping in specific places, the process with DIS takes over 30 days to not only, get a notice out to the owner and or letting that some, you know, there could be fines that are accrued as a result of the DIS process. So what I thought would be something that would be easy for us as a city to be able to do is to have just basic contact information available so that we or DIS can have a person contact with a simple phone call to say, hey, John Smith, we have a little bit of a situation here. We've gotten reports already of along, you know, your grass being extremely long. Can you please, you know, let us know when you're going to be taken care of, and for us as counselors to be able to do this. I think it's as good stewards of our communities. It allows us this opportunity. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we did was in talking about this here was I wanted to dispel a couple of things, a couple of concerns that people had over time. And we made a couple of changes to it. So there are actual amendments within this ordinance that I wanted to make sure that we discussed while we were here. The first one, so I guess what I'll do is I'll go through the things that people believe or perceive as being one of the potential issues. One of the things that people, or the feedback that we have received on this was that this would, we would have to hire a property management company for this particular ordinance. It's actually not the case at all. All we're asking for is the designee of a property. In this particular case, if you own 6 properties, if there's a person that you are designating as the primary contact for this particular property, that's the information that we're asking.
6 properties or 6 units?
6 units, excuse me.
Okay.
The other piece to this, is, one of the things that people were saying was that the state is actually enacting a registry that is being implemented starting as of tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that people were aware, this is a lead registry that is going to be public facing through the state. That particular registry is something that the state is taking care of. While it will be public facing for people to be able to research, this property manager information will only be housed with DIS. So DIS, the Department of Inspections and Services, will be the only people that have this information. This will not be a public facing entity, so people don't have to worry about their information being put out there for the public.
So it's not a public platform.
It's not.
You can just go online and look it up.
Not at all.
I mean, they will be able to do that with the state registry.
They can do that with the state registry, but we have no jurisdiction
I
over
mean,
the
you're
state.
not looking for any less
No.
certificate or anything like that.
No less certification.
So what basic information are you looking for?
Basic information is name, email address, local contact information, so it has to be a person from, within the state.
So you're gonna get immediate contact.
Correct, and, phone number, email address, and name. The other piece to this, which is something that we heard loud and clear, people were saying that the cost would actually be something that would be passed on to tenants, and that's not the case, actually. There is no cost attached to this except for in the moment of a person potentially not providing information.
Right.
And what we've done in this particular change in this ordinance is we actually changed it from will be imposed to may be imposed. So the DIS director has direct discretion on whether or not to impose a fine as a result of not providing the information that this request is asking for.
So for whatever reason, somebody falls short to comply with this, if it was enacted, it's not an automatic, $500 a day.
No, not at all.
Yeah, yes,
And-
you have discretion on that and there'll be an opportunity there.
Correct. The other thing that we made a change on in this ordinance, and this is through the recommendations of the Department of Inspections and Services, so that we can adequately support the requests that are being done here. Originally, we had wanted for this to start immediately after passing, and what we've done is actually extend it out to February 1st. So now people have until February 1st while we acclimate to the the work that needs to be done in-house for us to be able to support this. We are giving the liberty of February 1st.
So 5 months.
Right.
That's it.
Does anybody have?
Right, so, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you. The question would be like, if the person owns a building, when you say 6 units, you're talking about 6 units residential or 6 or mixed use, 3 or 4 or 5, like two commercial and 5 residential. You specify totally, it doesn't matter, it's 6 units.
So we, what we did in the ordinance was, describe what the multi-unit dwelling would be, and it would be 6 or more self-contained suites or apartments. Or multiple buildings on adjacent lots held by the same owner. Commercial entities are not included in this,
Yes, residential.
just residential, yeah.
So someone owns a 6 unit, which is composed of 2 commercials and 4 residential. Do they still have to register?
No,
Because it has to be 6 residential and above.
right.
Okay.
It's strictly for residential. One of the things that as we start navigating a different, what our housing landscape looks like in the city is we have developers that have larger buildings or multiple buildings. And one of the things that I think is extremely important is for us to be able to have a collaboration and a partnership with these property owners so that when there are issues, if there are issues, we have a direct contact to be able to support some of the ongoing concerns should there be. This is more in effect of a good neighbor policy rather than a heavy ordinance with large imposition of fines when somebody doesn't do anything. This is just us being able to understand what our landscape is amongst property owners within all of our wards and really be able to create an opportunity for collaboration rather than immediate implementation of consequence or punishment should something happen.
Anything else, Councilor?
Yes, what about the fine? Where you came with this fine, $500? Is for the people to get pushed to comply, or what about if they don't comply, they will take more than 5 months?
So, what we did was we changed it, so that the DIS director has the opportunity to impose a fine should they believe it's necessary. If it's something where, you know, somebody is just genuinely being non-complacent or non-compliant rather, I think that perhaps the DIS director having that opportunity to use his discretion to place a fine is something very different than immediately after February 1st. Not complying means an immediate fine. I think giving people a little bit of leeway to be able to just give us some basic contact information is a fair opportunity to get people to support what we're trying to do here.
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Last question.
Yeah.
Let's say that a person owns three properties.
Mhm.
Each property has 3 units, another property has 2 units, another property has 1 unit, that's a 6 units.
Mhm.
Does that person have to register it? As,
Within, as long as they're within adjacent lots, yes, they would have to register it, yeah,
adjacent lot means in the same lot?
consistently next to each other.
I'm talking about like 3 properties in the city. One
Oh,
in Silver Lake, one in Honeywell, one in
Sites.
Scattered site,
Scattered sites.
no,
No, they're scattered,
Into-
only if they're adjacent.
adjacent to each other.
Only, so they have to be together like 2.
Correct,
From my understanding, it has to be 1 unit that is 6 residential or more. Or if they're adjacent or together, it could be two to make 6.
Right.
But it has to be consecutive.
continuously, yeah.
Can I?
Of course. You get the floor to yourself.
Oh, no, can I take it too? Almost forgot the question now. I'll be back later.
Child, so let's open it up and we'll come back to.
Thank you for this, for the question. I just had a question in reference to, in terms of the non-publicized information.
Sure.
It's gonna be housed at the Department of Inspection and Standard. Is that subject to open records? I mean, basically, anyone can get that information, publicize it in their own way, right?
No,
So-
actually, this is gonna be completely private information that will only be housed in internal information as a database internally to the city.
And what protects it from
The
the
Department of
public?
Inspection and, the Department of Inspection and Services, they're going to be giving this information, I don't wanna use register because that's not what this is.
Right,
But they are going to be giving this information to DIS so that the DIS will have a database created to house this information there.
So they're not subject to releasing that information if Joe Schmo wants to acquire the list of the property owners who have submitted their information.
No, if you wanna
If I
elaborate.
may, Chairman.
Yes, please.
So I think that, of any information that the city holds on their servers could potentially be subject to, open, access to public records requests. But then at the end of the day, a lot of that would be at the discretion of the, department director, if there's something that we see that, would be, too sensitive. But just like, for example, the tax rules, like if somebody was to request that,
Yeah.
we would have to release redacted, information. So if somebody was to go that route, there is like a, state law that any information that's held that the city holds, technically we would have to submit if somebody was to be issued. And I know Eddie would probably give it a fire on that much more eloquently than I can, but quite sure what that is.
So if I may add, I mean, from what I gather, this is information that will be available to the health department anyway. As of tomorrow, if people comply, I mean, there is a, policy on that, and was to regards to the fines. But people, will continue to register. What makes it different is that this pool of information is only, can be, house for personal, and not personal, but for the consumption of business. And the Department of Special Standard.
Right.
Right, and that's the only difference.
Mhm.
But if somebody wanted to know, if I own 6 family, they can just go to the, health department, so tomorrow, if I register, it'll be on there.
Right.
But if my same property was registered with the city of Providence, it will not be available, but the city of Providence would know that we want it.
Right.
And if they needed to contact me, they will be able to do that because they have my name and my personal information, they can contact
The city of Providence.
the city of Providence. But it will not be any different than what I need to supply the health department with anyway, the state law.
This,
I mean,
the health
outside-
department has to do additional information, but this is literally just asking 4 points of information.
Exactly.
That's it.
So, no, I just for clarity, so at any point though, this information can be actually available for the general public. Because it doesn't block anything secretive or that in essence the general public cannot get. That information can still be available no matter what. Through the DIS, correct?
Yeah, but
So you can make it public.
So anytime I give legal advice, I prefer to do it off the record. I can just step into the hallway and explain what that would look like, what that process would look like.
I was just curious in a sense, because
Sure.
we've talked about at the state level, Department of Health, and how we're collecting the data, and that at a certain point,
Mhm.
it seems that this is just gonna sit there and obviously not available to the public, but the reality, it just seems that it probably be available for the public to see who the property manager of the entity, whether they're LLC or this individual.
Well, it's not a public facing database, so it's not, I mean, if somebody were to make a very specific request outside of the city, I don't know that we would be, or the director of DIS would be willing to provide that information. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not meant for the public to
Right.
to disseminate that information. And it could very well be that the property manager that is listed is not the person that's actually going to be or is the owner of the property. So we don't have, we don't know what the information that's gonna be provided to us is. But we don't, the Department of Inspection and Standards is not freely giving out this information in a public, for the public to understand who is, the property manager on the registry.
Yeah. And
Do you want to give me one more? Come see what
Yeah,
else.
absolutely. One other clarifying thing that I'll just say is just, every single thing that we actually do have, for instance, like those properties right now and who the owner may be, not only is that searchable like regularly, but if somebody was to actually have a public record request just to see the list of property owners of those properties, they could get that now. So like that would apply to anything that is on the city service, but it's not readily available. So there's another level that somebody would have to go through to get that information, and that would be going through a public record request. But yeah, we know different than all of the data that we have on all of our city servers. Like, for example, like even TSA applicants and stuff, it's not something that's public, but if somebody was to request that, the law department takes a look at the request, they follow the law, and they disclose the information and they redact things as necessary for the privacy of the individual.
Just a follow up, clarification and so.
Mhm.
At any time, can the DIS director determine if they put it on for the public to see, or they have to come before the city council or change the ordinance?
So I think that if we were to get a public records request for that information, I see that as something that, we would probably turn over. If we want to be more specific in, protecting some of that information, we probably would need more language in the ordinance, but, it's my opinion that it's really not necessary, just given the level of, data that we do have that is just accessible by the public if they do make that request to follow the law. So, no, thank you.
And it could be an LLC.
Yes, yeah, it could, because an LLC could be listed as the owner of a property now. And that's if that, if that is the, style that owners use, if they want to, shield their identity. But you'll see that on the, tax rolls now, that it could be an LLC that's owning the property.
Is that the same with the state though? So I think the state is looking for personal ownership.
Yeah, the state is totally different than looking for the owner, yeah.
Because we're not basically looking for the same information the state is looking for, aside from just the general name and address and email.
Exactly. I think the state is looking for the property owner. We are just looking for a property manager that can be responsive to like a lot of the issues that the city has, the police department inspections, et cetera. Like who is that person who's going to be responsive to complaints about trash,
In a
noise, et cetera.
particular way than normal, than it is happening now.
Yes.
Okay, you got, remember your question?
Yes, concern, one person. What about this particular owner doesn't have a management company? Is this particular person owns 5 units or 6 units and same lot? Who's going to be putting the name on it?
So the owner of the properties has the discretion of who they're going to be able to choose. This is not asking for a property management company. It's simply a point of contact that is going to administer any sort of questions or concerns or complaints for the properties at hand. Or that if it's one in particular out of that 6, that person.
Thank you. So who's going to be able to ask for this particular information to DIS, to the building inspection?
So the city of Providence, anybody that's a city of Providence person, I believe that DIS will carry that discretion, but I do believe as a counselor, if I want to be able to do some of the work to obtain to address concerns in a quicker timeline, I'm hoping that the DIS director is willing to provide some of that information so that I can make a personal phone call to whoever this property manager is. In hopes of being able to, like I said, conclude something pretty quickly or address a concern quickly in my meeting.
Do I have the right to ask for that information, even if I'm not a council from this area? Call the department inspection and say, oh, by the way, who owns these 6 units and these such address? Are they allowed to give me that information too?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine why they wouldn't be, an elected official or in another way, any, city employee that needs that information. I think that would be at the discretion of the department, but I can't imagine a reason why they wouldn't just want to share it readily with, city employees for the work that we do.
Because would be not fair to have some, we have too many people who knows, they like to know a lot of stuff. And they are vegan, so we would be something to put there, like, the information can be given just to the council person of that area, because that's the person who's having the problems. And then if you like to invite more council, that would be after that council person after that.
So you're saying the counselor could have discretion on who to use, who can obtain this information?
After you get the information from your area,
Understood.
you can displace the person.
But then again, this will not be available to the general public.
Right.
Am I correct?
Exactly, you're right.
Okay.
So just city employees and.
Yeah, city employees, I mean, yes, and I honestly, counsel, I can't imagine, you reaching out to inspections and standards or any city department and asking for a list and they don't give it to you. That's when you call me to make sure they get it.
You can imagine there's a lot of people who ask those questions.
And understandable, yeah, you are absolutely right.
But I give this as an example of why I think this is important. I can tell you that in my ward, I have multiple,
Yes, come on in.
I have multiple developers that have more than 6 units, one is right next to the other. And what happens is that while we have a point of contact, when things need to get addressed, even though you call the owner because you have direct information, that still doesn't get done. So after you've already tried a couple of times to be able to address these issues and mitigate things as quickly as possible for your neighbors, I believe giving owners the opportunity to have some of that autonomy to be able to facilitate something before code enforcement comes in and then fines are implemented and everything. I think that this is actually helpful in an effort to not only help a little bit with the owner, but also give us also the opportunity to do things a little bit more quickly. We all hear about our constituents or 311 reports that say the grass is too long, that there's too much dumping on this property. This property looks like it hasn't been taken care of in way too long, and there's people living. These are things that, while DIS should be focusing on the things that are much more severe, these small things are things that also create quality of life issues for us and for our constituents. So my goal in all of this was to ensure that we had or facilitated a quicker way to do some of this work in hopes of being able to, like I said, have a good neighbor, a promotion of collaboration between some of these owners and members, but also creating a communication opportunity so that we can facilitate things faster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Reyes, thank you for joining us. I mean, a little bit late, but do you have anything you'd like to add?
Regarding this ordinance, I fully support it. I'm not gonna repeat what Councilor Peterson just said, but as a means to communicate to homeowners regarding the quality of life issues that we see too often in our neighborhood is really important to me. And I think it's gonna be a helpful tool to counselors. And I think this goes without, well, maybe not without saying, but it's clear to me that this ordinance is a way for us to be proactive so that homeowners are not fined for potential violations. So, I know we're seeing a lot of testimony from landlords, but this is a proactive measure to build a relationship with homeowners and landlords so that we can say, hey, we don't want you to, experience a violation from the city. Let's get this cleaned up so that we can create a place of harmony for our entire neighborhood. So I'll save those comments. I do fully support this. I hope.
Just so you know, there was a substitute that we.
Oh, it was.
The only difference there is when it comes to the fine.
Yep.
Instead of saying that a $500 will be imposed, it may be imposed. Which gives discretion to the area's director. It sets a maximum of 500 and not a minimum.
Yep.
And also, instead of being taken effect upon passage, it now extends to February 1st of next year. Which would be time to set things up and for people to really get accustomed to it.
This was at the request to give DIS a little bit more time to prepare and hopefully have one person dedicated to be able to do all of this and get them ramped up and the database built and all of that.
That makes sense to me. Is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it makes sense.
Perfect.
No time.
I wholeheartedly support the idea. Obviously, I think we've had some challenges in our neighborhoods. I just have a question in reference to, has the DIS director reviewed this ordinance and as far as like the time for the hearings or appeal, is that within a manageable time and days?
Yes, I worked, when this idea kind of came about, the beginning of this year, one of the people that I want, obviously, the DIS director is probably the most important entity of all of this, and so all of this is going to be out there. And I did very much ask for feedback on the process by which we were going through this, and one of the things that, in our conversations had come up and actually, is part of the reason why we're extending or changing the start date is as a result of making sure that we provide, as much service to this particular request as possible, so there will be, an employee, from DIS managing all of this, for us. And that was one of the asks, if it was possible in order for us to implement, and that was the feedback that we received.
Is that it?
Yep.
Right, that could be a pretty interesting discussion and perhaps some of the misconceptions that we put out there. Can be dispelled by this discussion that we're having. The things that were brought up to me, so I thank you so much for clarifying everything. I think that very good findings. Right, so with that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve
As
as
amended.
amended.
Can I? Oh, can I? Can I do that?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is the original second by Councilman Myers, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. This item is approved as amended. Madam Clerk, item number 2.
Item number 2, an ordinance in amendment of chapter 1, article 10 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence entitled City Departments.
All right, so I had put in this some time ago because I was looking to increase the number of recreation board members by 2. I feel that a student will be key being there and perhaps a parent or a recreation director. So I will be restructuring this and then we'll be reintroduced. So for now, I was going to motion to continue indefinitely.
So move.
Made by Councilman Myers, second by Councilman Peters, on favor, aye. Both the ayes have it. Item number 2 is continued indefinitely. And being that there is no further item on this agenda, I'm just gonna want to do that. Councilwoman Peters. Well, second by Councilman O'Brien.
Second.
I just kidding, is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.